There we are. Hello everyone. Welcome to another Friday stream here at Strange Loop Games. My name is Jens, working as lead game designer here, and tonight we've got... See if we can't crank up reduce med låg eller ha som låg. See if we can't get audio here. Everything working and then everything not working. Hoping you guys can hear me. Audio level seems to be right on OBS, so I'm hoping it's not way too low. Yeah, so what do we got for us tonight? Well, we've got a few fancy things that have been kind of on the back burner for a while, and we weren't really sure if they were gonna make it into 10, so we've kind of been holding off on announcing anything surrounding it. But it seems like we managed to get them in a sort of preliminary state. They're not, super polished and done. But it is a really good start, and Jordan has been stellar at setting these up in working with blending and something kind of the environmental transition phases with the weather, where you're walking in from a clear weather to a light rain or a heavy rain and so on, which you'll see here in a bit. And then we have the event system, which is a way for the server administrators, after a lot of discussion back and forth, what we wanted to do with and kind of what control we wanted admins to be able to have with them, to completely kind of customize the time span any asset replacement is happening. So people that have been with us for a while know that around Christmas we're replacing some of the assets to be decorative and kind of Christmassy, like the fir trees and kind of sprinkling lights and so on. So we'll take a look at that, and this new system allows us to replace those on the fly in runtime without doing any changes or anything. You don't need a new build to roll out to go over these. So yeah, I think we can just shop right into it, and let me just open up Unity. There we go, and then we transition over here. And so we've got I think do we want to start with weather? Do we want to start with events? I think we can go on with the events since I rambled on them. It'll also be slightly on the technical side as well, so probably should have done it later on. But yeah, so the event system, which is not a thing in game to do and do like quests or whatnot. It's a backend system that handles how we do basically prefab changes or changes to assets that are in the game, be it a tree or a world object, a table, or so on and so forth, where you can transition one model into using something else. Previously that has been absolutely impossible without doing things to the client, which then you wouldn't be able to actually share on NP environment. This is now doable from modding perspective. I think I will have to check with Jordan to make sure that works 100%. It's using the addressable system, which I'll show here in a bit. Grab the server UI, and I also have two amazingly energy packages of cats roaming around behind me, so if they do pop up in front of me, don't be alarmed. I'm not being eaten by a velociraptor. It is just the cats. At the moment it is under both of the systems where the weather and the events are inside, available through config templates and on the server in the server UI. And if you're running a single player server, you can do a do we have chat? You can do a /server UI as a command parameter, and that will open up this window in the background, so you can tab out to it, regardless if you're running a dedicated server or through the client, which this generally doesn't pop up. So in here, you have the holiday manager, and the holiday manager by default is enabled, and I am very bright with this on. Holy snap. White alien Jens. Bear with it. Don't think I have a quick change. I'll have my lighting expert here change out the tuning in the room. Yeah, det där blev inte bättre. Det är tvärtom. Vi ska dra upp volymen. Went darker, went even more glowing than. There we go. Exposure on the camera is always fun. Yeah, so holidays, these are configurable here now, and at the moment we have a Christmas one, and you can, as a server admin, and as you can see here for this test, I changed out the start date to be a few days ago, and the holiday name is case sensitive, and it is extremely important to know what this is when you're making assets for replacements for it. And so the start date sets and is registered on the local time for the server, which means clients can't kind of do things or change their local time and be able to access these or whatnot. It's the server that is controlling these. So in case for the Christmas, we've got the Christmas string for it, and then the end date. So within these parameters is where this will pop up. So you just select the date, do whatever, and then you can just set a time for it as well if you want. And once that's enabled, any user that is freshly connecting to it after the time threshold has passed. So if you have the date set on 1800 and someone connects to it 1759, then they're not going to get that event asset change. But it will not require any server restart or anything. It just requires the client to reconnect again. And then that just replaces these assets to whatever Christmas placeholders in our case. And so you have like world object replacements, as you've seen before if you've been with us since last Christmas. Now there is a couple of limitations that we currently have with this system. And that is, it works fine for anything that in Unity uses a game object, which is what it's currently scanning for. So things like the block sets or building blocks, which are using scriptable objects, are not going to be able to be replaced at the current setup. We'll further on investigate and see if we can't do something that actually allows you to do that as well. So at the moment it's limited to game objects per se, and so it's pretty straightforward. We got that date there, so if we do this and we just change this out to be somewhere by next month, so we just have them disabled, I can just exit the game, exit to main menu, and I hop in on the server again, and they're gonna be gone. I hope. It was working this morning, so, you know. Fingers crossed and so on. Here we go. And almost. But yeah, so they should be gone. I'm not sure if it's an editor issue or if it's just me being wonky or the server being wonky. It was working this morning. That's all I can say. And as for all of these, they also have selectable booleans for if you want to disable specific events. You can do that. Switch to true and false. You can also disable the whole plugin, which will innately stop you from seeing these all together if you don't like asset replace all things, or you just want the natural environment and no kind of artificial changes. So how are these objects changed out? See here. We go in. Wonder if it actually, you know what? Yeah, I'm on. Let's see which branch I'm on. Yeah, I'm on the thingy. So when you're creating assets, do this and just select it. All you need to do is just create an event in the server GUI. So you create an event here, you go in here, and then you just hit add. And then if it's enabled, when the start, when the end date, and then just set the name here. And this is the string that's important to be used for. So any game object that you're creating just needs an underline and the event name for it. And that will replace whatever is in front of the event name. So in this case, it's just replacing spruce. So we have the regular spruce here, and then we have a spruce with just underline and then the event string. And that will just automatically replace it. You can do variants and change them out, and you can have all kinds of oddities and so on. However, it is limited to prefabs and game objects. We are, like I said, we are looking into what we can do in terms of supporting scriptable objects as well to be able to properly kind of do this for block sets and everything. But it does alleviate the issue of us having to roll out updates when we want to do seasonal changes. Yeah, as Zach was saying, like if we want to do like just color variations or like theme things or you know whatever, we can just do variations of these assets and just add decorative things in it, and then just shove it in as a specific like event pack, and then it'll just roll out and work on the fly without any kind of flipping around or client updates or server updates. And then you know we don't want to. The main reason for it is we don't want to obstruct our pipeline for hotfixes, updates, and so on. With limitations of having to package in just general like decorative event changes, which is the most frequent way of handling it, because it's a very convenient way if you're doing replacement things. But with this, we just flip a switch and it's done. We don't have to worry about the end user pipeline for this. Yeah, and if you got any questions for this particular system, just hit us up on Discord, and we'll expand on it a little bit in the mod kit documentation as well, I believe. So yeah, if you're tech savvy and doing mods, this will probably be something that you're gonna be interested in poking around in, if nothing else, just to kind of see how it works. And then we have weather system. Crazy, right? It's been talked about weather. We've had weather simulated, and now it's actually visual in game. Now I believe I want to switch over to Jordan's branch, so we'll see if this wants to play nice. Unity is a bit of it'll take probably take a few minutes here to kind of transition over. So I do want to switch over to and have weather audio. True, it is just the weather audio. The other ones, I think the other one was merged. The other one might actually be on. Yeah, the other one was in the other day. If you're on playtest, you have probably noticed that we have some weather in there. Let me just kick off the server again, and I should leave this up here. So for the technical part of the weather is checking and generating in the world as kind of a sphere object with particles. and it'll change and variate depending and inside the conditions that we have. And right now we've got clear weather, you've got light rain, and you've got heavy rain. We have plans to expand on that with cold biome weather like snowfall and so on. Those are not going to be done for 10, but this system is a good base for us to keep injecting more things in. So deserts and cold biomes are currently weatherless. You might see some overlap in border radiuses, but it is a good base for us to expand on and kind of get things rolling. Let me get back in game and we can have a look-see. Yeah, tornado, hail. Yeah, we can, like, visually we can do all kinds of crazy things, really. The interesting thing with the weather is that it is basing the intensity of the weather is based on a few variables of the actual in-game layer parameters. So you're not gonna see like super heavy, dense, massive downpour frequently unless it's really high moisture / rainfall in those zones, which means you are going to be more likely to run into more frequent rain weather in rainforest. And do this. Let's maximize this thing here. I'll leave these elks roaming around here with these fancy, nice decorative things. So inside world layers, and we've got environmental data, we've got moisture, and we have a rainfall layer. And this is what the weather system is pulling data for, how it's generating these weather kind of zones. And as you can see here, we've got rainfall pretty dense here in rainforest, and then it's a lot less over in the colder areas, but there's still rainfall, I guess, which would then be turned into like snow and so on. So these are automatically generated when and during these conditions. So inside here, because I'm not on that branch, I don't have the debug command, I believe. Inside the GUI, you can see how these weathers are generated and the duration they have on them. So they spawn with a few variables on how long they're gonna last, where they're gonna be at, how the bigger the world, the more weather events it's gonna support, which means it also scales with the size of the planet. So 129, 652. We can teleport to it. 129, 652. Now there are a few visuals that we are looking at continued polish for this. One being kind of like the distance from the player's perspective or the camera perspective, the distance from the camera to where you first see the particles in terms of range, as well as when you're transitioning over in between different rain types, but also when it's moving over to clear sky, and so on. It's more noticeable when you're kind of flying around and doing admin / dev stuff, versus when you're just kind of casually strolling along. However, we are quite happy with how it's turned out in terms of the visual aspect to it and the impact, and the general ambience improvement. And we're hoping that everyone else is gonna enjoy them as much as we are. It's kind of hard to tell out in the ocean here, but we are moving into clear sky. See, as you can see here, it's kind of flipping in between, and that blend point is something that we're looking at just improving. How will weather affect gameplay beside visual? At the moment, it's not increasing any general things, but it is because the weather is managed by the server, which means that the server can push information from the weather, or pull information from the weather and push information to the weather. Gameplay aspects of it, like increasing moisture temporarily or continue it based on these values, as well as kind of increasing nutrient depletion and so on, are all aspects that we're looking at in terms of how the gameplay is going to be affected by it. And with the way the weather system is rigged up, we can do that fairly easily. Just a matter of like getting time and being able to kind of do these things in the time span that we want to do them in. Catherine, is it going to snow in colder places? Yes, in the future it is. Right now, the weathers that we do support are light rain and heavy rain, as well as clear sky. So yeah, snow and other types of effects are definitely on the table. But yeah, so you got some a bit of fogginess and haze with this light rain that's not super impeding, but it is giving you a bit of a nice little visual implication, more towards that, you know, there are things happening in the background of the world that you don't really have control over. They are going to happen with or without your approval, and that is generally, you know, natural events such as weather, and this is part of one of the pushes for a more involved environment around you, and expanding ways we can kind of involve the general ecosystem and give better visual feedback to the player. Let's see, do we have a... Yeah, we got a heavy rain. Heavy rain here as well, naturally formed. 297. So these can all be kind of debugged and poked around in. Oh, there we go. Rainforest with heavy rain. I wonder if I wasn't in on that branch. I would have. We're working on adjusting audio for it as well, so you will have you know, more ambient noise, but it's currently in an open branching, kind of being polished and tweaked around. So yeah, you've got visual effects and they're happening, and they're, in terms of how the server manages it, they're tangible objects. We can make them do things as well in terms of game code. And yeah, so these are all adjustable on the server side as well. If you're looking at how to manipulate weather, you can change out, you can decrease and increase the size of how much the weather is going to be encompassing. So you can, and this is in blocks, so you can make them really, really big. You can also set in how long in minutes the weather is going to be roaming around. Hope heavy rain would destroy dirt roads without some immersion to having to repair the roads. Yeah, it's things like that have direct gameplay impact, is things that we can definitely do now. It's not something that we are kind of pushing into 10 because of the time constraints, but it is it's definitely open and on the table. Slash weather heavy rain, and then it'll take a few seconds, and then it should spawn more heavy rain here. And then obviously, as takes a minute or so to initialize and kind of get going, as the darkness kind of creeps up on you, it is also going to be more affected by weather. So dark nights are going to be getting a lot darker if there's heavy rain going on there, just out of the premise of how much it is being affected. And Engine Lord commented in on if rain blocked by caves and roofs. I believe so. It should be the case. If not, it most definitely should be the case. Do this /level. make a little pit here. Pitch black, maybe not the best time to... still a bit dark, but yeah. The tool. We just do this, and we grab some composite. Make sure we just have a form here. And the freaking fill type. Thank you. And then we just grab a block, and we just paste the block over there. And there we go. Yeah. So it stops at whatever it hits from the top. Yeah. So that's the new weather system that is slated and going in for 10.0 here, which should be live on the playtest. As always, with any kind of automated generation system that is flipping around and so on. That is actually Ricky. The clouds obscure the light. Will it be darker when there are storm clouds overhead? I believe that's something Toby is looking into right now, both in terms of the meteor, but also just the general skybox and the atmosphere visuals. So I don't have a good answer for you, but I believe that's the general goal. Whether or not that happens for 10 is at the moment very uncertain. Yeah. Any other questions about weather? Just keep popping them in there, and I'll try to answer as much as I can. I do like the idea of having like weather impact require some sort of interaction in terms of like repairs or like non-permanent structure decay, if you will. What is going on here? That was a terrifying freaking dead alligator that just decided to get stuck in the water. But yeah, no, it's making it, it's adding a layer of polish that we feel have been lacking for a while, and we're gonna keep adding just generally more things that makes it look more vibrant and look more alive. Yeah. Will the storms be planet-wide, or will they occur in certain areas more often? With weather system, if we're planning to create lighting, I think generally all types of weather effects is something that we'll be looking into with this in mind. Not necessarily like doing damage or you know, lightning strikes that actually strikes down and kind of torches places, but if nothing else, just like some background effects and so on that kind of just gives it more of a kick and just things happening. If the storms will be planet-wide or occur in certain areas more often, they occur, like I said, it's generated, like the frequency is kind of super deterrent in terms of randomized chances, but they are reliant on the different rainfall areas in general. So they, you know, if it has more rainfall, it's more likely to see more rainfall, if that makes sense. Was wondering for as far as say crops and so on. Yeah, so gameplay influence, like I said, with potential for weather being impactful in like depleting nutrients more frequently, or adding fertilizer, or assists adding fertilizer, or so on and so forth, and changing out the moisture levels. It's all on the board to kind of be poked around and tinkered with, but it's not planned for 10 in that aspect. So 10.0 release of weather will just be the kind of visualizing of the rainfall layer, and this is randomized and popping in, so you have it is regional, so you can see through debugging on the server side, you can see exactly where the center of the weather is. And then you can set and decide and limit how far or how big these are going to be. So if you wanted, you know, server-wide, you could do that. You could also make it, you know, an indefinite one. And so on. So there's a lot of things that you can kind of tweak and change to your content. You could also just set the value to really, really low or insignificant if you wanted to just not see the weather on your server or so forth and so on. Just leaving that adjustability and configurability to the admins. Could tailors make umbrellas and raincoats? That's a good idea. See people walking around with umbrellas because they don't want to see the rain in their faces. Talked about Adobe as tier 0 or new tier building material. Could use mud as well as clay in those building mats. Yeah. I think the recipes and the visuals and check-throughs to Adobe could be interesting. But it's like I said, a lot of things to polish, a lot of things to add, and we'll keep adding it as much as we can. Then we had kind of third topic on the agenda is annexations, and it's been what's the flashes? Can you set the height for storms? No, there's no elevation. Basically, it's coming from the atmosphere and then falling down, so you can't make like a really low cloud thing that just hovers the trees. It's all gonna be like map ceiling, if you will, impact. So you're not gonna be able to build over it at the current iteration. So annexation. After the playtest that we had and the amazing, crazy annexation cycles that we ran into, we've made a couple of changes to it, and I was hoping to be able to do some checkups, but I'm not on playtest, and I don't think the playtest was. Don't think it was built. Let me just check that quickly, because stuff has been happening now in the afternoon when I haven't been in the evening / night. I think the Steam client might be updated. Was that not in there? It might not have been in there. Was that on playtest? Yeah, I'm not. I don't have that built and ready, unfortunately. The struggles of Unity, I guess. Just trying to think of a way to visualize it. Here, let me just open up the chats again. Yeah, so what we did with the general annexation events that was taking place was we did a few changes, and I think if I just hop out of this, we can probably do something sneaky. So we grab latest staging. We'll just leave these. Oh, I had other stuff. We can just do that. Discard. And then we just want to switch over to staging, because I believe that was where John pushed the last changes. Or if they went into playtest, I'm in a bit of a difficult predicament here because I don't have that one open. Let me see here, settlement. Yeah, that was in staging, so that's fine. So let's just do this just to kind of give some game development procedures. So when we have local builds, or on my end, and then someone does a change and they update their side, they push their changes and that gets merged to the main branch, which then means I need to, maybe I am on latest. Yeah. So that just, it then tracks all the changes that are done, and then I merge them and pull them and grab them on my branch, and then now they're on my side. That means the settlement, a file that we have dug into previously in one of the streams, which is really, it might be a bit complicated and daunting for people that aren't used to modding, which is probably the majority. This is a file that is accessible for server admins, where they can change, tweak, tune, and adjust all the values related to the settlement variables, be it either influence radiuses or plots that you can get, and so on and so forth. How many settlers you need, or citizens you need to create the settlements. I've ramped up the numbers a little bit for the playtest. Now these are minimum citizens to found each tier settlement. So you've got your homestead, which you can do and deploy on your own. And then you are looking at 4, 12, and 30 citizens, respectively, to the initial creation of a town, a country, or the federation. And these are, you know, it's accounting for all the people in the sub-settlement as well. So if you have a town, they'll count towards the total of the country when you're forming the country, and so on. One of the recent changes that went in here that after a lot of back and forth with the playtest and some of the results that's coming out of there, we went back on the settlement foundations, which is what you were using to place down. Let's get Unity to update that as well. The foundations that you placed down to start the settlement had inherent cultural value to the object itself, which was then counted towards creating the town, which meant balancing it was kind of wonky, because you had a cultural requirement, which then meant also including the culture of the object, which could then be piggybacked to kind of get instant more culture, because you added support furniture to the foundation, which was something that we didn't really want. We want the culture to come from the player generated content. So we've revised that whole thing, and it is now just giving you a blank influence radius, which I was hoping to give a twirl here. We can get this going. We can close you out, minimize you, and there we go. We've got this switched over. We just need to start it, and then we can connect to it. So now you have configurable setting here for the base influence instead. So this is the influence in meters that the initial radius control of that settlement is looking like. Which also means that these are something that I'll be tweaking off. So this is the old values that we're using, the minimum culture of foundation. And it was having a bit of problems for me on the balance side to kind of adjust and fix these. So I'll be tweaking these values during the weekend here and getting a change out to the playtest in that regard. But now you've got the influence flat out, and you don't need to kind of math your way around culture going into it. So that was one of the really big kind of ease of introduction that we needed to do to make it more sense. Like, you place your foundation and you have your basic influence radius, and then any culture that you add to it is expanding that. And then one of the other big things was we changed out the way annexation works in terms of both requiring a cultural, both in terms of how it's working with acquiring cultural advantage, how the influence is being propagated out from the average property rather from one particular point. We're also doing changes to disallow kind of snaking of territory, where you can your plots that you've claimed are reaching, kind of projecting your influence, which means as long as you keep claiming forward, the influence will grow. Come on, Unity. Play nice. Let's do this. Let's do this. As long as you keep claiming forward, the influence will grow, which means you can keep claiming up to someone's border, and then you can keep claiming onward, and it'll kind of shove their territory out of the way because it's counting the average of the entire plot. And it's a bit reminiscent of, if anyone saw some of the really big weird builds people are doing in Starfield, for instance, with the spaceships, where they're building giant squares because the AI is calculating that the center point is the center of mass, so we'll only target that. We kind of ran into the same problem with the influence, where because it's counting on the average of the entire plot, if you're changing the size or shape of the plot, the influence is kind of generating weirdly in that span. Is there any plans to putting a maximum number of citizens to a town, country, or federation? And this I can see rising in some of the servers is that you'll only see one town with 30 citizens and the other one with only 4, perhaps encouraging more towns. You can't have more than 12 citizens in a town if a country requires at least 12. That's a good point. I mean, it like squalor should also be a factor, because you like a settlement only has, there we go, Unity seemed to play nice. A town or a settlement of a tier, I should say, have a limited amount of cultural properties that they can own, which means you can only and like picture frames and so on are limited to there's kind of 3 factors that are involved here. 1, culture is generated of player-made content, i.e. Pictures that they take, pictures that they rate and evaluate, as well as like if the server has them enabled, you can import textures and kind of vote on them. But generally, you have culture is based on generated evaluation by other players, and there's a significant penalty for evaluating or using a picture that have been evaluated only by people in the same town, which means that your cultural growth of the town, i.e. the radius influence, is not going to expand as much as if you had people from another town doing it. I believe does this work? I think that worked. Here we go. That popped down a town. Let's disable the rain here. Environment. Let's just toggle this off. There we go. Now we have a town. Look at that. We have a beautiful little town here. And if we mouse this over, we see that it has 10 culture by default, which is not, which will not stick. It's something that, like I said, doing some minor adjustments now that we've done some changes to it. So that was merged tonight. So I haven't had time to sit down and overhaul these since the changes. But essentially, you've got this influence value, and the influence radius is calculated off the cultural value, which you can see here now with the base influence of 40. The 10 culture points that it has acquired is adding another 38 influence. And this is all in meters, so this is going to be divided by 20 for 5 tile chunks, which is why it's grown to the radius we have here. So a town is limited to 3 cultural properties, I believe, which is set here as well. Somewhere here. Here we go. Maximum number of cultural properties. which is for town, that is 3, which means you are limited to 3 claims that you can use as kind of outposts slash other buildings for these things. And picture frames have a give frame to give copper frame portrait. So each of these frames that you place pictures in to be able to get culture, you've got 0 culture by default from them. So they by themselves are not worth anything. Make sure that these are we got the foundation, authorization, citizen. Open the deed itself, and it's, as you can see, it's a cultural property. It's not a residential, and residential is what's required if you want to have regular housing experience points. Any plans, ideas for allowing additional homestead type claims outside of town borders for farming, oil drilling, etc.? Probably not. It's been discussed, and the problem, the general problem with it is it completely alienates the whole idea and base principle of towns and nations and so on, because if any claim generated by a town, which is a inside the spawned claims here, so you've got town claim stakes, and these are usable inside the border of your town. So I can place this anywhere in here and, you know, create a new property. And boy, do we have a glow on that. That is some alien invasion stuff. So anywhere inside this town, I can place down a new claim plot and claim it for myself. And the whole notion of settlements is that you're kind of intended to grow and want to join other settlements for the benefit of being able to use more claims in different areas and different types. So a claim of a town can only be used inside a town, but a town can join a country, and then you can gain country claim stakes, and the country claim stakes can be used by that person anywhere inside the town or inside the country, not just in the town they're residing in, and so on and so forth. So it scales up into the federation, so you can use a federation claim to, you know, place that and claim property anywhere inside that country, which means you can have your homestead in the town, but you can still acquire property outside of the town as long as they have a parent settlement. Wonder if this is working. Spawn country? No. Could have sworn we had some debug for that. Settlement. I can do sets. /sets. So here we have another town, and then you have the country, which is then expanding a lot wider in here. So if you were only a member of the town, you wouldn't be able to claim anywhere outside here, but as a member of a country, you have access to all of these other property areas that you could grab in. So, you know, you could build an oil drill over here, or farm out in the forest now because you have a piece of the beach land over on that side, or the hills over here. And if you then join a federation, you suddenly have access to a whole heap load of almost the entire world as of the base influence at the moment, which said we'll be adjusting the cultures and all of it a bit. And this gives you access to almost the entire planet as long as you have a federation claim. Which means the homestead is your home wherever you're closest associated with, and or if you're not part of a settlement at all, or you could be living outside of a town, and then suddenly someone forms a federation, and you say, hey, I want to be a member of this federation, but I don't want to be a member of the town. You can join the federation with your homestead. So inside here, you've got these other claim stakes, which now gives you access to federation I don't have access to them because I'm not on the property. Can I do debugging live? Is always fun. Why am I not authorized? Ooh, because it's not voted in yet. Yeah, let's see. Slash property add. There we go. Am I added here? Yeah, I'm added here. Now I can grab them. There we go. So now I have one of these fancy marble gold looking stakes that I can grab and build. I can claim a property anywhere I want over here. And then we just change this out to grab that. And then I can claim out for this. So now I have property way outside the town I'm a member of that my homestead is in. And that is kind of the push to really, players should really want to expand into higher tier settlements out of a gameplay element reason for it. Claim tool looks fun. Yeah, you're grabbing a pen, although it's a little bit of a ghost pen. And yeah, so another sneaky thing is that the map on this property tool is the same map that is coming off the 2D plane for the minimap, so that will actually update and show changes and everything that's done to the world. If we do this, for example, yeah, the compass is actually showing north/south point, which is interesting little side aspects and things that the art squad has been tinkering with. Yeah, so some more changes to the annexation thing. We talked about how we changed out. We're looking at the values and the numbers. We nuked out the cultural points from the base value of it because it's a lot easier to read and understand. Even though it's somewhat complex, it's a new system. It's going to take time for people to get used to it. It's going to take time to learn some of the bigger details about it. Culture is basically only generated by player content by interaction. We are looking at more ways to acquire culture in future updates. So what is available in 10 is not going to be kind of the end of it. We've got some cool stuff planned for the upcoming updates after that as well. On the deed itself, you can see how much it's generating the influence for, and kind of the math around it, and so on and so forth. So that should hopefully be a lot more simplistic in terms of looking at the criteria for creating these settlements. Which is something that I am looking over these numbers and kind of tweaking them as we'll push out the update to the playtest as well. So for direct settlement annexation, let's grab, I don't know if I can actually see that here on, did we have, don't think we had a straight out we can do another one. Let's do a /test town, and then here we can do citizens per town. Let's do 3 towns, and then country. Let's skip the federation government in each, and then apply, and then that should. Oh boy! Apparently that didn't like it. I think I might have to chase someone to update the test script there, because that did not appreciate it somewhere. My guess is that there is a recipe that is invalid because it's looking for a specific name of a recipe. Or it just got way overloaded. So the way this works is it's a nice little debug command that is supposed to generate more things, but it somehow didn't really like it. Do we have an immigration office here? No, we don't. Let's see. Can we do that? Yeah. There we go. Place this down. So now we have the when you have a town and you're bordering another one and so on, you're looking at a town that is ravaging the countryside. They're killing all the animals and they're polluting the world and so on. They're unrestrained and they're going absolutely ham on the environment. We have annexations that is a way to either regulate very rogue areas, or if you wanna, as a general community, just wanna make sure that everyone kind of follows the same rules and, you know, forces them to join this country or this federation, to subjugate them to your laws and maybe force a common currency or so on and so forth. Annexations are a way to do that. Now, the tricky things with annexation, as we've seen in the playtest and so on, it can stir up quite a lot of emotion. It is also a double-edged blade because, as Dennis mentioned on the Discord here in one of the annexation discussions, it's an unfortunate evil in terms of there needs to be a way to be able to subjugate bad actors. At the same time, the annexation system is not designed to be a constant PvP aspect of eco in that sense, as it's very contradictory to what the design idea of eco is, as the general goal is to promote the settlement tiers and promote the expansion of the granular governments to give gameplay elements that are essential to progress and be of value to the individual players. So generally speaking, there should be more reasons to want to join a country than refuse to join a country based on criteria. So one of the things that were happening on Sea Otter was that it steamrolled, and as a country started eating other towns, it then started getting super crazy in terms of cultural value, and then it just rolled over to the next one. So a few things that we're looking at and have been adding now for the in general for these things is, one, we've added a time gate. So when you annex a settlement, you're running into a time lock of you can't leave the parent settlement as that town that got annexed within a certain amount of time. And at the same time also thresholds, so you can't annex completely freely. We've added resource requirement thresholds that you need to reach when you're annexing a town. So it's not just, oh, I want to eat that town because I get more culture so I can eat another town. There's now a significant cost that we can poke around with, and this is regulatable by the server as well, the server administrators as well. So this particular one for the resource requirements is set inside the settlement definitions here. There we go. So in this monstrous file here with all of these fancy things, we have under annexation resource requirement, you can set the tagged resource as well as the quantity of the resource that is used to annex a country or a town or federation, so on. And these pops up here in the value. And we're also readjusting the total value that is required in terms of culture to envelop and kind of eat other towns. So these are two values. We've got the percentage required, and then also the absolute requirements. So this is the total amount of culture you need regardless of the culture that the other town has. So this is something that's somewhat different. Prior, you just needed to have enough culture. So, you know, if you had like a settlement that had 0 culture, and then you built your settlement and you just shoved in like a painting, suddenly you could annex the other one because you had a way higher percentage of culture. So with this new added thing, we've added like a minimum layer. That means that a town or a settlement has to acquire enough culture to even start annexing other places. Not just having more than the other town, they actually have to reach a minimum value to start doing that. And then the resource cost, half of this is getting chucked in the bin, so to speak. So when you annex a nation or annex a settlement, you have this resource requirement. And as you can see from the tooltip here, these are consumed by the links in the embassy desk, which is what you're interacting with here. So the embassy desk now has a storage tab, and it's a fairly unique storage tab for the embassy. Anything that is linked in here in terms of input will be able to, or is valid resourcing to be consumed in terms of stockpiles or chests or so on towards this goal. And half of these resources are consumed by the server when you're performing the annexation. So there are resources lost. The other half will be distributed to the players on the annexed side of things, which means if you as a country, you annex a town, half of the resource requirement cost is going to be divided up by the players in that town that just got annexed, which means you're kind of bribing them to join your town, if you will. And there's a few kind of key points to why we decided to do that. And one of them being that if you have a super advanced country that may have, intricate economy laws or a lot of kind of nuance to the crafting and the sales of it versus a town that might be rural, might not, the players in that town might not be as active, which means they might not have, in our particular resource choice, we went with the general upgrades. So that town might not be super active. They might not be as financially stable as the group that is controlling this country. So it then distributes these upgrades, which allows the players in the annexed nation to kind of catch up, or at least get on even terms with the people that are annexing them. So there is a cost loss relation. So let me get over here on the resource. So these will only be distributed to active the other party's active players. And it also has a threshold. So if you have a town that's completely abandoned and there's no players active in it, so it's a deserted town, you just want to annex it so you can take it apart and you want to clear out the land, it doesn't have any cost at all, as a way to kind of clear the map for new buildings or new claims and so on. So that's a big kind of change that we've enacted on from comments and surrounding things from the playtest to kind of make sure that there is a cost derivative to this, and you can't just annex people left, right, center and have no investment in it to just like offset, and you remove part of that conquest, just take people over, and these settlement tier cost annexations also scale with the tier of the settlement, as you probably sneak saw there in the file here. So you've got, for a homestead, you've got a basic upgrade. For a town, you've got advanced upgrades, and for a country, you have modern upgrades. And at the moment, as a placeholder for the playtest, these are static values, regardless of the amount of population in these settlements. However, the goal for 10.0 release is that these will be set by individual citizen count, and obviously a lot lower. But so these would be the more basically scaling with the people you have in the settlement. So the more people you have in the settlements, the higher the cost is going to be. And that could get really, really expensive for you as the annexing party, which then means that it might be more beneficial to, instead of strong arm annex them to join you, start up diplomatic discussions and say, hey, come join our federation. We're an awesome bunch and we'll help each other and grow economically. So yeah, more changes are probably coming, and we are continuing to use a lot of the feedback that's coming off the playtest, not just for bug reports, but also kind of fine-tuning the system and making sure that we're covering more of the angles and any general concern people have or exploitative kind of concessions and so on. Just helping making sure that the settlement system and all its parts are fairly stable, rigid, and kind of does what we intend to push for in terms of where the game is going, but also kind of like making sure that everyone is having a good time playing with it, even if they're not directly involved in creating settlements. The goal is still to make sure that their experience is as best as we can from our side, and making sure that the players have the tools to do a lot of the management and kind of tweaks and regulate using the laws and everything around it. So yeah, there's a couple of complex tooltips here that kind of describes the different percentiles and the values and what you need and so on and so forth. And yeah, no, we're the playtest is being absolutely phenomenal in terms of finding all of these kind of quirks, and we cannot thank you enough for putting up with the oddities that happen during playtest and the bugs and crashes and everything around it. But it is insanely fruitful to make sure that we have this as polished and stable as we can for release. And yeah, I think that is what I had for the stream tonight. Hoping everyone has had everyone's still awake listening to me ranting on here. See if we can't coax someone else to co-stream with me here, so I can rant back and forth with someone else than just myself. Yeah, hoping any general concerns with it keeps getting addressed, and if you have anything else that oh, you didn't think of this XYZ, pop a comment. Don't hesitate to start a discussion in the playtest feedback on Discord, or make a thread and so on. Yeah, we're happy to keep hammering away at it. Bug squashing is going exceedingly well. We're making pretty good headway towards a stable build, and we'll probably have more updates for general progression in that part for the next stream. So I'm hoping to see everyone there as well. Wish you all a good weekend and good continued Friday evening, night, Saturday morning if you're down under, and catch you on the next one.